Welcome to week 3 and 4 of our class. I want to give you just a quick video overview to launch into these next 2 weeks. I really appreciate the conversation that started on the Google Classroom stream. Thanks for figuring out how to sort of navigate that posting and replying. One thing to keep in mind is that in Google Classroom, if you use the convention of a plus and then start spelling someone's name, it will tag them and that auto generates an email to them. So that can be a nice way to sort of keep the conversation going and notify people that you have left them a note. The other thing to say is that this class is really about the future of EdTech and really hopefully will push you past your comfort zone of what are the tools and devices and the kinds of issues and the lens you're using to view the technology. And as such, it's a really great place for conversation and for articles that push us past where we are. I invite you in any of your reading or your Twitter feeds, if you see things that are relevant, please just make a new post. It doesn't have to be part of an assignment, and pose a question to us. You can do it in the Google Classroom stream. You'll notice that I put this one here. This article was so timely this morning, really in terms of what's that tension between human-computer interaction from the Atlantic. So you can put it here, or you can also go ahead and put it into the Facebook group if you would like to join that. Keep in mind that that group is going to be wider than just our class. It's others in the program and in the field. Feel free to invite friends to that. You should be, as a member of the group, you should be able to accept other members into it. And the goal here is to generate conversation about how do we push further into this topic and how do we consider some of these really tough issues that I think we'll continue to face. Not all computer use is good, and so how do we get ahead of that and sort of lead that charge? And I think you might find that, most of the students in this program are the pioneers of advocating for tech in their schools. They're doing a lot of the things that you see in typical reports all the time. So this space hopefully will give you a chance to talk to others that are in that same place that are also innovating and push your own thinking. So again, just a plug for using those spaces for dialogue and also certainly using Twitter as well if that feels appropriate. Sometimes it can be harder on Twitter with the character limit for that. So. In terms of where we're going in this next 2 weeks, I'm going to ask you to read 2 chapters from the Martinez and Stager book, really thinking about what makes a good project when you're in this sort of invention and innovative kind of curriculum, and then also a little bit about teaching in this paradigm and how do we do that, and then for a lot of you, that's going to also be thinking about how do you help others who may not be at the same place take those steps. Then I've got 3 articles for you. Programming is poetry, and we're going to sort of dive into coding and programming languages this week. An article that pushes back that says coding is not the new literacy. And then this one here, Hack Your Notebook, Circuitry Mixes with Paper in a Creative Project for 21st Century Learners. Again, just some things to think about are, when we talk about projects, are all the ways that we can use some of these consumer level devices in our teaching, are they all equal? Are they all good? And so just pushing your thoughts with that. So that's sort of the reading and the backdrop for the week, or for the 2 weeks. In the first week, what I'm going to ask you to do is that you'll see that there's just an abundance of tools to get started with coding. And I've given you just a huge list here. What I'm going to ask you to do is, if you're new to computer coding, like you have no background, you need to be the learner in this. You do not need to be analyzing it through the lens of how am I going to do this with kids yet. Keep in mind we have to have first-person experiences with these kind of devices and ideas before we're going to be ready to teach them. It's not to say you can't learn along with your kids or that you have to be the expert, but this class is in part about putting you in the role of learner. It's not necessarily about the lesson plan you'll use tomorrow, which again, some of you will struggle with, and I will continue to push you to give yourself the space to be the learner here. So I'm going to ask you to choose 5 of these. The way that I'd recommend tackling this If I were doing this, I'd open these all up in browser windows. I'd take a quick look at user interface, and I would just quickly react, and then maybe slim it down to your 5. If you have done a lot of coding, then definitely dig into resources that you haven't yet used. This is not about checking a box, it's about pushing your skill set. When you're looking at coding resources, there are some which you'd consider sort of a block-based coding, where it's a very visual interface and you're typically dragging and sort of assembling almost in a Lego style the language of coding. It's often where we see folks starting, often with younger learners too, in part because of the print literacy. And then there's also coding and programming languages. And some of you have expertise in those. Again, there's lots of languages. Take the next step in your own personal learning. So you're going to open your tabs, slim it down to 5, and then I'm asking you to play for 15 and 20 minutes on each site. I'm not asking you to do a user design and a user interface analysis. I'm asking you to actually try it. Can you figure out what you're supposed to do? What do you learn? Is it frustrating? Is it fun? You know, who would it work for? You can think about the user interface in terms of your preferences, and then, you know, certainly if you're thinking about using this for students, you can think through that lens. But how's the learning organized? Is it free play? Is it paced lessons? Is it a blend? Really just sort of dive into that, but make sure that you actually do some of the lessons. It's not going to be enough to just read the websites. So that's going to be sort of what you do with the coding resources, and what I'll ask you to do then on sort of the creation output is, for next week, you've got 2 different posts that you're going to make on the stream, and that will mean that the stream's really busy, which will be fun. The first will be sort of your reaction to the coding experience. So again, the whole activity is going to take you 3 to 4 hours to play with the resources. You know, will take you about an hour and a half, and then any of the reading that you do before it and putting together the writing as well. And you're going to just sort of share with us, you know, what was the experience like? What prior background knowledge did you have? Which did you like the best? For what kind of learning would you think it would work? Some of these would work well with kindergartners. Some of these are going to work well with college students, for beginners, for advanced students, and so on. What was the personal experience of playing with the tools? Did it feel like play, or did it feel productive struggle? You know, tell us what that was about. Any other impressions you had about the experience? And then just you're going to comment on another person's post. Again, I'm not doing the week delay here, so do try and be conscious of not waiting until the last minute to post so that folks can react. And then the other thing that I'm going to ask you to do is just a really quick proposal for your Maker Journal, which will be due the following week. So in this, again, on the Google Stream, you'll create a new announcement, not the same one as that you write your coding response to, and describe your plan for your first Maker Journal. What are you planning to do? What course outcome are you starting to tackle? And which type of Maker Journal will you be doing? So for this, you're really going to need to dig into the assignment specifics of that. And again, you're going to need to do some planning for the Maker Journal, because you'll have 5 of these total, and you need to do 3 of the 4 types. So again, you may want to start to map this out for yourself and think about how you'll do this. So that first post, you're going to also reflect on how it connects to the goals you made in assignment 2. And I apologize, as I'm reading this, I've realized I've forgotten to put on there. I would like you to comment on one other person's post. I'll go ahead and add that in after the video. So those are the 2 pieces for next week. And then for the following week, for the 27th, you'll actually be working on producing that first Maker Journal. So keep in mind, there's a whole section of Blackboard over here under assignments that's on the Maker Journal that gives you that written instructions. It will give you a link to my example. This one was one of the visit examples. And a video overview, and then it will also give you some resources. So again, it would be perfectly appropriate to build out from the coding experience and dive deeper into that for this first Maker Journal. It will go beyond what you do in week 1 of this, or week 3, I guess I should say, of this. It's going to be a much deeper analysis of these sites. You're going to need to go further. And again, put yourself in the shoes of the learner. If you've never written code outside of a block-based system, you might want to tackle that. But again, there's no expectation that your first project has to be code-based for Makerspace, but it may fit nicely. So as always, keep the questions coming. I'm happy to answer them, and really, really thrilled with how this course has started off. It is such a fun dialogue, and really exciting how folks are feeling outside their comfort zone. I will tell you that that is definitely there in the pre-assessment, but also with lots of passion and excitement, which is just why I love teaching in this program. So onward, and be in touch with questions. Thanks.